Welcome to 3x5 news, views, and reviews scribbled on index cards. We get in and we get out fast, so keep up. Why should you watch me? YouTube is replete with lengthy political conversations. That's not meant to be criticism, because I found those on my favorite channels informative, brilliant even, personally incapable, not to mention uninterested, in speaking at length. I aim to produce succinct analyses. I think you will find them original, surprising, and outside the box. In other words, you won't hear what I have to say anywhere else. One more thing. I goof around a lot. Let's dive in. Someone, Charlie Kirk, was killed, and the killer must pay. We're all agreed on this. That's killer in the singular, since it seems like the killer acted alone. Just one person. But the Trump administration wants to RICO conspiracy half the country. Okay, I exaggerate. But for starters, they plan to investigate progressive nonprofits and funders and possibly strip them of their tax-exempt status. Effectively a death knell for them. Second, Trump's people may label them as domestic terror threats, which would really be the kiss of death. You know how the federal government has been honoring the death of Charlie Kirk? Trump has ordered the flag flown at half-mast at federal buildings and embassies, as well as at military posts. Kirk is being memorialized at the Kennedy Center, also at an NFL stadium in Arizona, where Trump posthumously awarded him the Presidential Medal of Freedom. You're probably familiar with what happened there. Erica Kirk, the angel of forgiveness. Trump, the avenging angel, and Stephen Miller, the devil's envoy, or Satan himself. We are also seeing NFL games and even the New York Yankees holding a moment of silence for him. I have to admit that the Trump administration has pulled off a pretty neat trick by getting much of the entire nation to mourn someone that 99% of Americans had never heard of before his death. You can just imagine that during the moment of silence, somebody whispers to the person beside them, "Who is he again?" I have come up with a term that explains how this polarizing figure has been turned into Saint Charlie, a holy martyr to healthy political discourse. You know the term greenwashing, when through public relations the company tries to make itself seem eco-friendly when it actually isn't. Or sport washing. A prominent example of that was Saudi Arabia launching Gulf LIV, partly to obscure or whitewash its human rights abuses, including executions. I've got a new one, and I think it explains what the Trump administration and right-wing media have accomplished in turning this person, as divisive as he was when alive, into a martyr to said healthy political discourse and, quote, family values. While I may not be the first to come up with the phrase, I am not looking it up to check so that, at least for a while anyway, I can pretend I did. Without further ado, here it is. Death washing. Death washing. Suddenly this person, who it is difficult to dispute was racist and sexist, is now a martyr to free speech and healthy dialogue. But what did you expect? Obscuring and overlooking the actual truth has become a national pastime since the election of Trump. Now, let's turn to how not even criticizing Kirk, but simply alluding to him, got Jimmy Kimmel yanked off ABC. You have probably heard how companies that own independent affiliates of ABC were targeted by Federal Communications Commission Chairman Brendan Carr. Needing FEC approval to merge, two of them told ABC they weren't running Kimmel's show anymore. Let's move on to the statement that got Kimmel in trouble. Not intended to be funny, it was intended to set up a humorous bit. Kimmel said, quote, "The MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it." First of all, bear in mind that he said this before it was learned that Tyler Robinson was mostly left-leaning, if focused on a single issue. the persecution of trans individuals as exemplified by his partner. By all appearance, he was acting as a misguided knight, a champion on that person's behalf. But again, by all appearances, she was horrified and cooperated with the authorities. Meanwhile, many have commented on the formal, stilted even, nature of the texts. It has been speculated that it was admitted killer Tyler Robinson's way of establishing his partner's innocence by making it look like this is the first time that she knew anything about his intention to kill Kirk, whether or not that was true. I'm sure authorities have been looking into that. That aside, as for Kimmel's statement, it's not a joke. It's just a comment, and an awkward one at that. I watched video of him saying it a couple of times and then read it over multiple times. Here it is again, quote, "The MAGA gang is desperately trying to characterize the kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points from it," end quote. I struggled to see exactly what about it, aside from casting general aspersions on MAGA, made Trump's people single out this one statement. So I asked ChatGPT. Apparently, however, general and nonspecific, MAGA thinks the statement links the shooter with MAGA. As I mentioned, it was recorded before it was known that Robinson wasn't a maggot, spelled M-A-G-A-T. Anyway, they viewed the statement as calumny, slander. Now, let's turn to see how Kimmel's statement was intended to set up a humorous bit. That began with the much commented upon clip of Trump being asked, "How are you doing?" in the wake of Kirk's death. After saying he thought he was okay, he immediately pivoted to the construction of his ballroom. Kimmel then remarked that Trump was in the fourth stage of grief, construction. I think this is what really got Trump et al.'s goat. But even for them, it would seem too petty to use that as a pretext for getting him removed from the air. Thus, they circle back to Kimmel's original setup statement. As generic, it probably has a lot of people, so generic, it probably has a lot of people besides me scratching their heads. Anyway, the backlash to Kimmel's suspension was so great that it apparently overwhelmed concerns on ABC's part that the independent affiliates wouldn't run his shows. Welcome back, Jimmy. And Guillermo,